Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the all-new 2024 Toyota 4Runner. Before we get in the video though, as always, if you're going to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get right into it. So right now, we are still experiencing the 5th generation of the Toyota 4Runner that was released for like the 2009 model year. I might be off by a year or so, but it's been around forever, basically since the time of the dinosaurs from an automotive perspective. But we are finally going to be getting a 6th generation 4Runner for the 2024 model year. And this has pretty much been confirmed at this point because for the 2023 model year, Toyota is going to release like a special heritage edition of the 4Runner with the 5th generation body style, and they're not going to make any changes. And so 2024 is the year. Now here are the changes that are going to happen for the 4Runner. First off, it's going to be built off of the same platform that the new Tundra, Sequoia, and Land Cruiser are currently being built off of. The platform is obviously going to be shrunk to work with the shorter wheelbase of the 4Runner, and this is also going to make it so it's possible for this platform to be used for the new Toyota Tacoma as well. I'll have a separate video made on that truck in the near future, so if you're not subscribed already, recommend subscribing so that when I post that video, you guys can see it. But anyways, it's going to be on the same platform, which means that the new 4Runner will most likely have a pretty similar setup to the Tundra. So independent front suspension, solid rear axle, and then some form of, multi-link suspension in the back end. Now, aside from that, from a powertrain perspective, this is where things get pretty spicy if you are a 4Runner enthusiast. So right now the 4Runner uses the naturally aspirated V6, but it sounds like Toyota is going to axe that engine because it just doesn't make sense with what they're doing. I mean, look what they did with the Tundra. They went from their big naturally aspirated V8 to a twin turbo V6, and then also a twin turbo V6 with a hybrid powertrain. So for the 4Runner, the candidate that everyone has been kind of like guessing will be put under the hood is the turbocharged 2.4 liter 4-cylinder that is currently in the Lexus NX. It puts out 275 horsepower and then 317 pound-feet of torque in the NX, which would make it so that it would have about the same amount of horsepower as the current 4Runner's 4-liter V6, but it would have way more torque than the 4-liter V6. Again, 317 pound-feet. And on top of that, with turbocharged engines, you can produce the torque at a much lower RPM range, which is great for both on-road and off-road driving, which is what the 4Runner is all about. And on top of that, right, this would be paired to a more modern transmission compared to what the 4Runner currently has with its 5-speed automatic. And so again, that's the most likely candidate basically. But that being said, Toyota says that they want all of their vehicles to have a hybrid option by 2025, and so the 4Runner will probably also debut with a hybrid powertrain. I'm guessing, again, this is my guesswork, but it's not just me randomly throwing stuff together. This is what a lot of people have kind of like come together and said, is that they're probably going to make a hybrid version of this turbocharged 2.4 liter 4-cylinder, and that's what will be in the 4Runner, and it'll be like the premium powertrain, just like you have the iForce Max in the Tundra and the Sequoia. That's the premium. Well, the Sequoia only comes with that, but for the Tundra, right, that is the premium powertrain for the Tundra, is getting the hybrid version of the twin-turbo 3.5 liter V6 they have in there. So same thing with the 4Runner. From a power output perspective, Toyota is always conservative compared to other automakers, and so I'm guessing it's going to be somewhere in the low 300s for the horsepower, and then probably mid to high 300s for the torque. So it's definitely not going to be a Ford Bronco or Jeep Wrangler 390 or not 392 4xe competitor from a power perspective. It's going to be quite a bit lower than both of those. But then obviously Toyota reliability, and that's what people end up going for it from that perspective. Now moving on from that to just the general exterior styling of the new 4Runner, it's probably going to take a bunch of style cues from the new Sequoia and the Tundra, and they're kind of going to just like obviously shrink it down to work with the 4Runner. But Toyota obviously has their new corporate styling they're kind of putting across the lineup, so just expect all of the style elements that you see on the new Tundra and on the Sequoia to kind of be shrunk down and fit for a 4Runner sized vehicle, which I think could actually work really well because the styling on the Tundra was kind of controversial, but then, once that styling was put on the Sequoia, everyone's like, ooh, that looks really good. And so then, once that styling's kind of shrunk down in the 4Runner, I think that it's actually going to end up looking really good. And then from an interior perspective, same thing, just take the Tundra, the Sequoia interior, and just shrink it down, and that's what the 4Runner interior will have. So we'll have those cool new seats that are in on like the Tundra TRD Pro, for example, that have like the military themed print with the center portion of the seats, but you'll still have that kind of like utilitarian design with the door panels and with the dash as well that, you know, has some nice materials on it, but it's definitely not going to be, you know, super uber luxury, right? It's still going to hold true to Toyota's kind of, again, utilitarian theme. It'll have their new larger infotainment system, full digital gauge cluster on certain models. Again, they're going to take a similar approach with the 4Runner as what they did with the Tundra, where lower down packages will have a, you know, massive analog gauge with a little screen, and then higher up packages will have a full digital display. Same thing with the 4Runner. I'm guessing the cutoff line will be for probably the limited package, so like a limited and a TRD Pro and all that will have, you know, the full digital gauge cluster, whereas the lower down packages like the SR5 will have the analog gauge cluster for people that obviously, you know, don't want all the big fancy screens and everything. And other than that, though, that's the changes for the new 4Runner, which obviously is quite substantial. So I guess we'll just quickly get into my thoughts on this new 4Runner, and then we'll just close off the video. So first off, I'm really excited for this new 4Runner because obviously the 4Runner has been out for such a long time, and so it is in desperate need of a redesign, just like the rest of Toyota's lineup, frankly. And so it's just exciting in general because it's finally coming out. On top of that, though, this gives Toyota a chance to really bring up the 4Runner's off-road capability. Now, the previous generation 4Runner is extremely capable, and there's a ton of aftermarket support, so you can really, you know, just amp things up. But this will, again, give Toyota the opportunity to make it so this is a little bit more competitive with the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon and the new Ford Bronco with like the Sasquatch package, because Toyota, frankly, has fallen behind quite a bit. The current 4Runner has quite a bit less ground clearance. Its approach, departure, and breakover angles are not nearly as good as those vehicles as well. And a lot of people compare them against each other. Even if they aren't off-road enthusiasts, they compare them against each other from an aesthetic perspective and then also just from the specs on the vehicles. It's funny. It's like people will buy a vehicle just because it has more ground clearance, even if they're never going to use that ground clearance. They just like being able to brag about it, right? And so, you know, I'm hoping that Toyota definitely, you know, brings things up. But I am a little bit doubtful because they didn't really do much with the new Tundra TRD Pro or with the Sequoia TRD Pro. They're more capable than the previous generation, but they're not like as capable as the American counterparts. So like if you don't take the Sequoia TRD Pro, for example, it has less ground clearance than the Ford Expedition Timberline. And so it's just a little bit of a disappointment. And so I'm hoping that Toyota doesn't carry that to the 4Runner, and also tow hooks. Hopefully Toyota puts tow hooks on the new 4Runner, unlike the Sequoia and unlike the Tundra. I don't understand why they're doing that. And aside from that, I guess on the powertrain perspective, you know, my personal opinion, I think it's the route to go. I love that 4-liter V6. It's really torquey off-road. It's like a really solid feeling powertrain. And, you know, frankly, that thing will last forever pretty much. That being said, though, it doesn't get great fuel economy, and on top of that, it doesn't feel quick on road, whereas this new powertrain is definitely going to make the 4Runner feel a lot quicker on road, and it's going to get decent fuel economy, and especially with gas prices as high as they are, that's going to be a big plus for 4Runner owners. And so, yeah, overall, I think that it's, you know, a positive change. It's definitely going to be a huge shift for a lot of, you know, current 4Runner owners to go into this new 4Runner when they release it, because of, you know, all the interior changes and especially because of the powertrain change as well. Let me know what you guys think, especially if you are a 4Runner owner, if you think that this is the right direction or if you think that Toyota needs to make some changes, and what would you recommend Toyota to do. Anyways, see you guys.